All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Stoughton Finance Committee meeting of Wednesday, January 28th. We do have a quorum. We have 9 people here currently, and our membership is 17, so that constitutes a quorum. I do expect a couple of other people to join us as the meeting progresses. So if we could start by standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, everybody. Our first item on our agenda for tonight is an approval of the minutes from our Wednesday, January 14th meeting. So I emailed those out to everybody on the committee. If I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. I approve the minutes. Thanks. Chet Collins has made a motion to approve the minutes as submitted, and Becca seconded. Are there any discussions, changes, comments? I'm not hearing any. I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Thank you. 3? Thank you. I didn't see your hand, John. All right, so it was 603 is the vote. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the public hearing for the special town meeting on March 2nd. I would like a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
So Becca has made a motion to open the public hearing for the special town meeting articles for the special town meeting on May 2nd. Not May 2nd, please. March 2nd, and there better not be one on May 2nd.
I'll second.
And Mark has seconded that. So all those in favor of the motion to open the public hearing, raise your hand and say aye. 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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Let's say it's a 9-0 vote. Thank you. So just for the audience to know, we have 3 articles on the public hearing because there's the 3 articles that are going to be for the special town meeting. We will hear the presentation on each article. The Finance Committee members will be able to ask questions, if any, on those articles, and then I will open it up to the members of the public to ask any questions or make any comments on articles. Just if you do come up, please just state your name and where you live for the record on the public hearing part. Having said that, our first Article 1, which is an article which proposes to dissolve the Stoughton VNA Public Health Enterprise Account.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and through you to the members of the Finance Committee. Article 1 has to do with addressing a longstanding issue regarding the VNA Association. Due to recent changes in Medicare reimbursement, this department has and will continue to require substantial subsidies from the general fund in order to exist. Now, the reason for that is because Medicare requires, in addition to the nurses, several other functional requirements: occupational health therapist, physical therapist, speech therapist, for which there is not a demand from the Stoughton VNA. But if we have to provide those services and the costs associated with those services, then we lose money incrementally on every hour we invoice Medicare. So it cannot exist as an enterprise fund. Let's not mistake that with we're doing away with VNA nurses. They will exist in a different form and at a very smaller scale. I'd like to read to you, although it's in front of you, part of the submittal I put in your package, just those first 2 sections for the general public. The definition, and you'll also see it in our new policy manual, of an enterprise fund. An enterprise fund gives communities the flexibility to account separately for all financial activities associated with a broad range of municipal services for which a fee is charged in exchange for those services. The next paragraph says, the expense budget for the VNA enterprise must be balanced with the combined revenue and available funds being sufficient to cover the proposed total service cost. The fund is designed to fully support the enterprise through the associated fee structure. Revenues and expenses of the services are segregated into a fund separate from all other government funds. The bottom line is this enterprise fund is not self-sustaining from the fees and services, for the fees it collects for the services it provides. Last year, it required a $400,000 subsidy from the general fund. So our ask in this article is quite simple. Let's do away with the enterprise fund because this organization cannot meet the regulations or the town requirements for it being an enterprise fund. It will be part of our general budget, and we will do away with that subsidy. Now, Madam Chair, I won't go down this road unless questions are asked, but you may ask, well, what will we do with the visiting nurses? That's not a subject of this article. This is just a dispel of the enterprise fund. But through you, should the members like to wish how we're going to provide nursing services, would be happy to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. I will just let everybody know before I open it up to questions. If you do want to ask questions about what the plan is for the visiting nurses with the enterprise account, you can. Just, I'm going to ask people to keep in mind that for tonight, that'll be informational, so we understand it. It will be much more open to debate when we do the public hearings on the budget for the for the annual town meeting, because that's where it will be incorporated into the budget. I also want to let people know, we did a few years ago, we had a similar article to dissolve the ambulance enterprise account, and the ambulance was just rolled right into the budget. So this isn't like the first time something like this has happened. Thank you. Becca?
Hi, thank you. I have two questions. So the first one is, so currently the VNA is subsidized by our operating funds, our operating account?
That's correct.
And so in a perfect world, the VNA would be self-funded through reimbursements and whatnot.
That's correct.
But it doesn't happen, and so we have to backfill that with operating funds. By dissolving the enterprise fund and additionally making other changes, what that does then is the reimbursements still happen, correct? But we are better budgeted?
It will not require a subsidy. What we will do is, and we're in the process of doing it now, is scaling the staff. The entire administrative staff would no longer be needed because there'd be no billing.
Okay.
The occupational therapist, the physical therapist, the speech therapist would no longer be needed. They're on per diem contracts, but their services would no longer be needed. There's no demand for it in Stoughton, but Medicare requires we carry them on staff. That's what's creating much of the subsidy. 2 years ago, we had 8 visiting nurses. And the reason municipalities are getting out of the VNA, we're one of only 2 in the Commonwealth, is because we now are losing money for every hour. Incrementally, we're losing money by the hour. So we used to think when I first got here we could fix any financial problem by expanding our footprint into other towns and growing revenue. Until we get in and analyzed it very closely and found out for every dollar we bill, we lose 10 cents.
Okay.
So there'd be no subsidy because we're reducing the size and the scale while increasing, and now we're getting into the other plan, which I'll speak to if asked. We're integrating them into a general public health organization of existing resources that have been highly siloed forever. They're all going to be in one organization under our mobile integrated health program that'll be conducted under the fire chief.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to go in and briefly explain that. Do you have a question? So if you want to ask your question, then once the question's been asked, if you would briefly explain for the people that are going to, someone's going to ask it eventually, so would you just explain briefly the plan?
Happy to do so.
Hi. So you mentioned a few times that the occupational therapists, speech therapists, others haven't been required or utilized by the town, or there's no demand for it. How do you know there's no demand for it? First question. And then second question is, it seems to me like this is kind of a reorganization of all of these different components in a new model. If there was a demand for those services, could those be introduced to that new model in some way, shape, or form?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Laura. Under the new model, which you'll see on this page, we're building an organization. It's called the Stoughton's Commitment to Health and Wellness of its residents across their lifespan. If there is a demand for any type of public health problem, which includes the services you just described, then we just have to incorporate those people into the budget moving forward, as opposed to an enterprise fund where the primary target is Medicare that won't pay. How do we know there's no services, that those people that we pay to be on staff are not utilized at all, even though their services have been promoted, advertised throughout Stoughton, throughout the region, in fact. That's when we thought we could make up for the deficits by growing volume. Mm-hmm. When we did the forensic analysis of the department and found out that even if we were at 100% utilization, we'd be losing money and would be requiring a subsidy because of the new Medicaid rules, the new Medicaid reimbursement rules. It's so bad, and then I'll move off that subject and get to your second question. They give you an allocation of X amount of visits, call it 12 visits for physical therapy. You go out, you do those visits, you send in a requisition saying they need 5 more visits. You go and you do those 5 visits, you get a response when you send the bill that they didn't approve it. So you did those 5 visits for nothing. Mm-hmm. It's horrendous. It's working with the federal government has become impossible. I'm pretty sure that by next fiscal year, there'll be no municipalities in this space. With respect to do we incorporate additional needs into this, the answer would be yes, as long as town meeting is willing to support that additional expense for those additional people and those additional services. As you look at that map, you look at the center, it's called Stoughton Integrated Health Collaborative, and it talks about providing services to residents across the lifespan, from birth to senior citizen. So although the staff will be reduced to 3 nurses, if there's a call from a senior in Stoughton, by way of example, that says, look, I just got home from the hospital and I need new dressing today, they would typically go to the emergency room if they didn't have services. They can still call this business, this hotline, for all of these services and say, I need a nurse to visit me. The nurse will go out there and do 2 things. She will, A, provide triage for whatever the patient needs at that time. And if that patient needs ongoing care, provide the insight and the information to hire a private sector visiting nurse that takes their insurance and connect them with that person and make sure they're well taken care of. But it's a triage and then a consulting service within our operating budget. It's a service primarily to our seniors. That extends to the rest of the lifespan, right from infancy. As you know, the public health regulatory market is evolving quickly. Some would argue for the better, some would argue for the worse, but there's a lot of confusion. So we're taking our wellness program, our public health educational program, our opiate program, our visiting nurses program, and our EMS program, and consolidating it into one. Now I've explained this in the past, but I'd like to just indulge you for a second. There's this new concept that is being used in Boston and in Milton for the South Shore called mobile integrated health. And we happen to have a retired ambulance that we're fixing up so that we can enter the mobile integrated health business. In Massachusetts insurance industry, if a person is released from the hospital and then returns through the emergency room anytime within the next 30 days, the hospital is not reimbursed for those services, for that return visit or return stay, if they're back for the same thing for which they were discharged. So mobile integrated health is a collaborative network between EMS and the nurses, whereby we set up an ambulance that we don't have to buy, we already own it, it was about to be retired, and if a call is made for something that a person would otherwise go to the emergency room, we can charge for the ambulance. We cannot charge for the nursing services. Now, because local hospitals in Boston and in Milton don't want to pay for that uncompensated care that they would have to provide to a returning patient who had just been discharged in the last 30 days, they're contracting with a local mobile integrated health organization to pay for 100% of our nursing staff for the entire year, so that we can go out, there's no billing involved because they're paying for the full nursing staff in advance. So we're in direct negotiations. I should say Mike Carroll is in direct negotiations with the former Good Sam Hospital that is now Boston Medical South to see if they'll sign up with us and we'll be the mobile integrated health provider for this whole region which doesn't have one. If we're successful, this department will function at no cost to the community at all. Worst case, if we're not successful in getting that grant, annual grant from the hospital, then the cost is still going to be a third of the staff we've been carrying for the last 4 years.
So just to clarify, one of the differences here is that previously had focused on services more for the elderly,
Seniors.
right? And now it's branching across the lifespan, but you're removing support for things that might be more commonly needed in other parts of the lifespan, like speech therapy or occupational therapy. So are you building the support based on the model of what you've had so far, or what you anticipate needing with a broader community that you'll be supporting?
It's a great question, Laura. We're building it right now on what there is a current demand for. What I'm suggesting is that should a different service demand become apparent, as long as Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, Town Meeting approve the expense, we'll continue to invest in this model.
Yeah, I would
Across the
plan
landscape.
for that because I would anticipate it would be
Right.
different.
I would give you an example of mobile integrated health that has nothing to do with the hospital. Although if the nurses are paid for by the hospital, there's other services we can provide. By way of example, we can go to schools to provide flu shots with consent of their parents. We can provide at the COA, go out and provide flu, pneumonia, shingle shots, and the like, right on site. We can go and provide advanced medical care, AMS care, with telecommunications direct to the emergency room from the ambulance, given our medics and our nurses, and treat them right at their home through integrated mobile health. And that's why the hospitals are I used to wonder, why would the hospitals want to give away that business, right, when people go into the emergency room? The reason is, if they were in the hospital within the last 30 days for that particular problem,
Can't bill for it.
they service them for nothing.
Yeah.
That's why they're interested in a lump sum versus a variable, uncontrollable cost. So there's a lot of moving parts, but none of it is worth exploring until we change the business model from an enterprise fund to a town budget. I will tell you that in that room where this entire team has been meeting for the past 3 months, going through the business planning process, they never understood in their own silos how much of an expansive service they can provide by working as a single organization and having a single phone number where you can be dispatched to any incredible amount of services. By way of one final example, in this is the police department. You may ask why. Well, you're going to have, my son is a police sergeant in charge of family services in Kingston, and he's called all the time from a mom or dad who knows that their son is experimenting with opiates, and it petrifies them. So there's education through this program for the child. There's intervention through this program for the child. There's collaboration with the school resource officer through this program to find out where the drugs are coming from. All of these particular resources have been operating in a silo for so long, there was very little, if any, cross-communication. They're going to be located together, they'll be staffed together, and they'll be communicating on how do we gang tackle a problem for a resident that otherwise wouldn't have been addressed. And the police department has more information than we ever realized. And we're going to use that information to provide proactive care. We're allowed, can't push ourselves into people's lives. But we're going to do a significant amount of branding so that people know that this resource is available to them. Thank you, Laura.
Take Lauren. No, take Lauren first.
Sorry, Lauren?
So typically when patients are inpatient and they stay for like a week or whatever in the hospital, they're usually discharged with visiting nurses if needed, right? But if a patient goes to an emergency room and it's an acute issue, and they come home, they think everything's fine because they went to the emergency room, they were discharged, no services or anything, but something else happens. So that would be the situation they would call, and then a nurse would be sent out.
That's correct.
And then a triage would happen.
Yes.
So say the patient went in for knee pain, had a fall, but there was nothing that was found to be a problem. So then the nurse would go, say, okay, well, this patient's having pain, we have to do something about it. So then at that time, could the nurse recommend the physical therapy?
Absolutely. That would be their job.
Okay.
Is to hook them up. Because, to most people, as you know, being in the industry, Lauren, it's a big, mysterious world out there
Right.
about how to get services and coverage and everything else. The nurses are experts in that.
Right.
And they will stay with that Stoughton patient. We will not service anyone outside of Stoughton. They'll stay with that Stoughton patient, fix what's ailing them at that moment, if possible. And if it requires the administration of a drug, they'll do so in consultation over the radio to the ER.
That was my other question. Like because during COVID and everything, we used this, it was a different name. And there would always be, like the EMT would come out and have like a FaceTime visit with a physician.
Correct.
So what physicians are going to be doing this if they don't get it with?
That call will go from our mobile integrated health truck
Yeah,
with a ALS, Advanced Life Support medic on board.
okay,
And just as the medic would communicate with the ER
yeah,
on the patient's condition en route,
okay,
the medic would communicate with them from the person's home and get guidance and possibly prescriptive medicine for that patient, and therefore avoid the visit to the emergency room.
Okay, one last question. And then well, it's been a long time since COVID and all that, we used to have the mobile integrated health for chronic conditions, right? And it would be set up and there would be visits and all that, like on a regular basis for the patient. So now, with the nurse, there's 3 nurses that are going to be on staff, did you say? So one of those 3 nurses would go out, and if the patient needed continuous care, they would now refer them to a different VNA?
That's correct. A
Okay.
private sector VNA.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Chet, then Don?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I thought you turned on. Okay. That we had a discussion about doing it with the VNA and going to the same I don't know, the same company or whatever, the whole thing, in which I said at the time, I thought it's going to put a big burden on the fire department and things like that. But if this is going to work out, great. I just don't like, what is the enterprise fund going to go to? Back into general fund?
Right now, the subsidy from the general fund is going to the enterprise fund. Once that subsidy goes away and we resize the staff, the expense for the remaining staff will be in the operating budget, but it won't require an additional $400,000 subsidy to break even in the enterprise fund.
Okay, but I thought the VNA was giving us money back every year.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not,
No,
Many years
remember?
ago,
yeah, they used to.
Remember?
They
Not-
used to, but not over the last few years with the rate changes. That's why they're
Okay.
running at a deficit now.
that's correct, Madam Chair. Since I've been here, it has never made a penny because the Medicare reimbursement rates continue to go down further and further and further as the cost of services goes higher and higher and higher. So since I've been here, it's never made money. And we tried for a year or so to try and make it up on volume by expanding throughout Norfolk County. That made the situation worse because once again, in the past 6 months, the federal government has again increased the requirements for having a public VNA and decreased the reimbursement. So we've just reached the conclusion, Chet, that doesn't matter how hard they work or how bright the plan is, we can't get there doing it this way.
I know, but didn't we reach out to other towns for our VNA to collect insurance money for going to like Sharon, Canton,
Sure.
and that didn't work?
No, the Medicare will reimburse us for wherever we provide services to a patient who's covered by Medicare, whether it's Sharon, Randolph, it doesn't matter. The most recent adjustment from, I know I've said this already, but the most recent adjustment from Medicare to a public sector VNA is to reduce the amount of the reimbursement. So the further away we went, you're traveling further, it's costing more, and they're reimbursing you less. It's just become unsustainable. As you know, I was a turnaround guy that fixed broken companies for a living, and we used to have an expression, you can't get there from here. Given the current condition, we cannot continue to do it the same way and expect a different outcome.
Okay. So my other question, you're talking about the ambulance. Okay. My understanding last time that I heard that that ambulance that's not in service is going to be used for the Engine 2 fire truck to make into a towable trailer for taking Engine 2, the one that Joe McCrisky has, or excuse me, the town has, the antique truck. So why are you talking about
Sure.
using that for other avenues?
They've withdrawn.
I'm very confused because I hear one thing, now you're telling me something else.
Well,
So
what happens, Chet, is
please explain and be honest about it.
I resent that comment,
I
Chet.
don't care if you resent it.
I know you don't. I know you don't. Things change.
No, sorry, man.
I'm not the least bit upset. I'd like to answer the gentleman's question, so perhaps he'll change his view of my character. The Historical
Your
Commission
character's great.
changed their mind. They withdrew their interest in the ambulance because the Historical Commission purchased a tractor, that pulls a tractor trailer. They no longer requested the need for a retired ambulance. Nobody lied. They changed their interest in that truck. So it's sitting at the armory. It was repaired, it was ready to go, and they withdrew their interest.
Okay, can I say one thing?
Certainly.
And I don't want to be mean or
That ship has already sailed.
well,
Go
I'm
right ahead.
sorry, but why wasn't it not brought out to the town? Last time the town heard, that Joe McCrisky was asking for the ambulance to make it into a trailer to haul the truck. That's all.
It was
Nobody
tight-
hears anything in this town. You talk about transparency,
It was
and nobody
titled-
hears anything.
Excuse me for interrupting, Chet. It was titled to the Historical Commission, and then they never took possession of the truck, and then informed us, I'm going to guess 2 months ago, after it's been stored at the Armory, they have no interest in the truck any further. So you're hearing it for the first time because it's the first time I've met with the FinCom since that has occurred. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I apologize, Mr. Cotto.
Thank you, everybody. Dawn?
Thank you, Madam. I have a question, doesn't have to do with the ambulance or anything like that. With the dissolution of the Stoughton VNA Enterprise Fund and the lack of profitability, I was questioning, do we have any liabilities or debt taxes that have incurred because of that? And, to make sure that it's paid off before we do dissolve it, so I apologize for the question.
Oh, please don't apologize.
That's a good question.
That's a great question. No, the account will be closed out on June 30th, should town meeting approve it, and there'll be no continuing liabilities for the enterprise fund. Thank you, Don.
Mark?
Thank you. My question is more on the leadership of the new organization, I guess I want to call it, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, sorry. My question's on, what you want to call the leadership of the new organization, that it is on why the fire chief was chosen and not somebody, I guess I want to say independent or whatnot. Because it seems like a lot of responsibility and a lot of work that we're going to be throwing onto the fire chief and all that. And I was wondering if you could explain why it was the fire chief and not somebody, new and that knows VA, knows the nursing and knows all the different organizations,
Sure. Thank you, Mark.
components.
The current department head for the VNA will remain the department head for the VNA. So she will continue to provide the management and leadership of the visiting nurses. The other people who are in place are all the leaders of their organizations. Some of them are the only person in that organization. We needed a single point of contact to make sure we're collaborating and getting the most out of every one of these siloed organizations. And truth be told, Mike Carroll was the one who brought the mobile integrated health strategy to our attention after he heard that what Milton did and what the city of Boston did. Mike has got the relationship with the local hospital to try and do this deal. So the other organizations aren't going to change. All we're doing is improving the level of communication, the level of collaboration, the type of branding we do to the town of Stoughton so that they know that we have all of these services. So Mike is the best person in town to do this. And in one respect, it's going to take a lot of pressure off of his EMS services. I can't tell you how many calls they get for earaches, sore throats, tonsillectomies, things that we can proactively deal with in a more efficient way, and quite frankly, in a way that better serves our community, the
Now,
people that are paying this.
On the budget, is it going to be a separate line item, or is it going to be under the fire department? Like, say we don't like this, all right, we have to go with it because we have to fund the whole fire department.
It's a great question.
Yeah, is it going to be a separate, so we can not vote for, I'm going to vote for it anyways, but if somebody wants to, could it be, is it, you know what I mean? Like, is it going to be that and then the fire department's here, like a separate or not?
It will not be integrated into the fire department. The fire department remains the fire department. It's just reporting it to Mike because of his specific,
Right.
his specific professional capabilities.
But it will be a different line.
It'll still be public health.
It'll be a public health line.
So
Thank
I'd
you,
like
sir.
to follow up, like part of his salary may be apportioned there,
We didn't, but if
you know,
that's the
in the
will of the
future or
finance committee,
something. No, it's not, but
certainly do that.
I just, I like the idea of it. I also like the idea of it being a separate
Separate.
department, to make it clear. I have a couple of comments, well, I'm going to share. I had the same question as Mark did about how the leadership and why it was somebody not with a public health background. I do believe, like, the understanding that dealing with the emergency rooms, Mike's probably had the most experience because the ambulances are there all the time. I do have a concern. I noticed there was no youth commission, no mental health, and I know that is a significant public health need, and I'm a bit concerned that there's no inclusion of that within this global mobile integrated type of thing. An awful lot of mental health calls being needed, and often what winds up is, a lot of times it winds up the police coming out. And there are, and that can, there are some police officers in particular that do a great job, but that's not necessarily their area of expertise. And sometimes they're not necessarily the best people to be dealing with those situations. So I think, I know a few years ago, the Youth Commission was kind of moved into the Recreation Department. I do not believe it belongs there, but I do believe I would like to see mental health included in this, in the Youth Commission and the counselors, because that is a huge issue, both with them and then with the Council on Aging, with the social workers and stuff. That's a huge issue for the community, and I think we're overlooking that.
Madam Chair, great point. If you look at the upper right-hand corner, we had lengthy discussions on this, on the potential of including mental health in this. So on the right side of your page, we talked about potential areas of service for all residents that could be entered into this. There were pros and cons about the sensitivity of and our expertise in the mental health area, or lack thereof. So to Laura's question earlier, can we add other services into this infrastructure? Absolutely, and we will, and we should, and we will. But right now, the team didn't feel that they were well positioned to deal with a program that's working very effectively within the Youth Commission. They have mental health counselors on staff right now, and didn't want to mess with that until we had a firm integration plan into this organization. But to your point, real demand, real need. If this organization can provide that service better than it being siloed the way it is right now, then we should be looking at that. But we weren't prepared to touch it yet. These things on the side, there was a lot of discussion about when EMS makes calls and they find situations where there is hoarding. That's an indication of a bigger mental health problem. But the reason it's on the right and not in here is we didn't have yet a plan or the resources to provide that service in launching this
No,
program.
I understand
it's
that.
certainly on the horizon.
Because I do think there's like crisis mental health situations where people often need the same triage that they do with physical health situations. And, and then there's the excellent counseling and therapy services that the Youth Commission counselors provide. But I think there is a need there. I'd like to, if this goes through, I'd like to see that eventually incorporated. And I could see where it could be tricky to do it its
Point
first
well
year.
taken. Absolutely.
And I just also would like to make a comment. I believe if the town collects any revenues, whether from the hospital, whoever the contracts, those funds all go in, those money all go into the general fund.
That's correct.
So that's why we wouldn't need an enterprise account. They would just go into the general fund like trash receipts or everything else to be allocated by town meeting.
That's correct.
Any other questions from members of the committee? I'll open it up to the public. I'll start first with Cynthia.
Thank you. Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. To respond to a previous speaker, when you're talking about, say, from birth to near death, occupational therapy, speech therapy, those kinds of therapies are provided under ed plans to many children in the school system. And then the school system bills their insurance companies for refunds. They don't?
They can bill Medicaid if the students are on Medicaid and the parents agree to sign a consent. However, they can't bill any other insurance companies because no private health insurance company will pay for services provided in a school environment.
I stand corrected, except that the services are provided, no matter how the family can pay for them. If it's a child in Stoughton schools with an ed plan, at least those folks are covered. When we talk about mental health, usually families have been dealing with therapists, but sometimes there's a crisis. And unfortunately, people dial 911 and the police respond. Now, if the person is unusually violent, then that is a police matter. But they also usually call the ambulance. And the paramedics or EMTs come out to transport the individual once they're calmed. And in some cases, they have to medicate the individual. And then the person is taken usually to the hospital and then triaged out of there to various places. We have in our family folks with these issues, and that's how it's been handled. And so far, no one has been harmed or shot or just tased or anything. They really do know how to handle folks that have legitimate mental health issues. And I don't like what you see on television somewhere else is not Stoughton, Massachusetts.
Thank you. As the person that made the comment, don't need to argue. I have nothing. I've also had family has also had experience with those. I do know there are situations that even going to the emergency room is really not the appropriate. There's a lot of crisis intervention that's done that can be done within the home and keep the person there as long as they're calm and facilitate them into the appropriate inpatient or partial day program or mental health services that they may need, as opposed to sitting around the emergency room for 48 hours or 5 days waiting for a bed and a place to open up. The thing that I was talking about, right? Not necessarily the emergency. If you have somebody obviously that needs to, is physically restrained and there's a different issue, but a lot of times these issues are, they need mental health, they're in a crisis, but going to the emergency room just basically means they sit there out in the hall or in a room until there's a bed available, and sometimes that could be days.
I know that happens. But you have to realize when the police are called and the people that own the home say, get him out of here, that's what they have to do.
No. So?
Hi, Lisa Lyons, Precinct 2. So I have 2 questions. Okay. I think the first question would be, you said somebody from town is currently negotiating or trying to get contracts from local hospitals. So Boston Medical South, that's...
Yes, not from Boston.
Yeah, whatever the old,
Boston
what
Medical
Good Sam now, what's Good Sam is called now.
right. So is that the only hospital Stoughton is trying to contract with right now? Or is the person, I forget the person's name, I'm sorry, are they also trying to contract with other hospitals, like Brockton hospitals, other regional hospitals?
Sure. Right now, I know the chief is working with Boston Medical South, where he's also got a wonderful relationship and led the charge on their fire at Brockton Hospital. So he's got a wonderful relationship with their president. I don't know, I just don't know the answer completely. I don't know if it's customary for a town to have multiple relationships, or do they have that relationship with the hospital that most serves the town's needs.
The town's emergency needs.
Right. If there's another hospital that would be interested in doing it, I'll certainly have Mike explore that.
Yeah, okay, so you clarify that. So I just want to know, how soon will we, as a town meeting reps, let's say, before we vote on this, would we know if a contract is in place? And then I have one question after that.
I really don't have the answer to that because it's dependent upon the hospital and their board of directors and when they're willing to fund it. I'm sure they're doing their own return on investments and how much they're willing to pay if they want to partner. They have expressed a real desire to partner with Stoughton FD on this, but I can't speak for how long they're willing to
I
react.
think for the article, this is two issues, like,
Right.
we're talking about them because one brings up the other, but at least I will say, in my opinion, from what I've heard, the enterprise fund itself needs to be dissolved,
totally
regardless
get
of what
that.
happens.
Totally
So
understand that.
For this, right, so like, we wouldn't necessarily know what would happen. That would be this vote for this one. If it's going into if the town's planning to continue the services, we should know more. It would come up every budget season. So whatever would come up this year at the budget, then at the annual town meeting, and if it's not done by then, I would imagine if there's going to be.
I just asked these questions so that we're getting a comprehensive
No, that's
picture
right. I
of
just
what we
want
did.
other people to understand as well, like, this is where it will be most likely to come up. It's like the fact, that we don't know now doesn't necessarily mean anything, because we're talking about the
I
issues
get it.
together. You
Let
get
me,
it.
Let me
But
just finish. I get it.
Thank you.
So I just want to clarify the reason for my question is because let's say we do get a contract that will substantially pay for the visiting nurses that you're looking to move into this public health.
That's
So
correct.
that's a pertinent piece of information to
You're
know
correct.
is when that contract comes in.
To the chairlady's point, the money would go into the general fund, but, so there'd be no direct relationship to the nurses, but yes, the money coming to the general fund would
So
offset that.
that leads into my second
If
question.
I may just follow up
Sure,
on one thing,
sure.
Lisa. We have not assumed that money in the operating budget before the Finance Committee right now.
Oh, of course not. Right. Okay. So that leads into my second question. Hypothetical for a comprehensive planning out. So say this goes through, the contract gets in place. To Mark's point earlier, would our accounting department or the fire department be keeping track of so that we could actually see this is how much this department is costing us and this is how much revenue we're bringing in separate, as Mark pointed out earlier? I just want to make sure that the revenue and expenses for this public health or the Stoughton Integrated Health Program we would be able to get a separate accounting of that.
Sure. On demand, we can always get a income statement on like for instance, the trash business. We can tell you as of this month what our expenses are to provide trash services are and what the revenues are that are generated.
Okay, thank you. That's all I
Certainly.
have.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak on this? Not seeing anybody. I am going to now move to our next item on the open meeting agenda, the public hearing agenda, which is Article 2 for the special town meeting, which is a transfer of funds to the South Elementary School project to reduce the borrowing. The transfer is coming from borrowing from the high school project to go to the South School project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very simple. This is the last payment received for the high school project. The project's been closed out with the $3,303,590 applied to the South School project from the high school project. It would reduce the borrowing for the South School project. That would also be in combination with what we've already did at last town meeting. It was over $1 million. Don't quote me on the exact number. But according to Biz today, she gave me a rough idea that was about 4.75 with the 3 million and the 1 million plus that we're able to reduce the borrowing for the South School project by applying this payment and the previous payment.
So this is an additional it's $3,303,590 as listed in the motion.
Correct.
So that's the amount of money that we would be transferring to the South School project in addition to what we transferred last year.
Yep, to reduce the
All right,
borrowing.
so this is an
Yep,
additional payment that we've received.
correct.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
You'll note in the handout we sent you today, I believe, the resolution that the Select Board voted months ago to initiate this action. And we want to make clear, it's not to spend additional money on the project, it's to reduce the amount of debt commitment that
Thank
the
you.
town meeting made.
I did get a copy of those minutes. I know we talked about it. I will send it to you after this meeting. Any questions, comments from members of the committee? Sure.
The reason why this is being transferred from the high school project to the South School is because it's like projects, correct? That's correct. Because it can't go anywhere else. It can only go to a like project. Right.
That's 100% right.
Sweet, thank you.
To follow up on that, a like project, for those of people who may not understand, aren't fully aware, is one that is, one, a debt exclusion, two, basically for the same purposes and for the same borrowing for the same length of time. I think I got that. You got it. All right. Thank you. Any comments from the public?
Yay!
Oh, nope, sorry. There's one, Mr. Lurie. Dave?
A little housekeeping. You go, Ian. You got it. Thank you, Madam Chair. David Lurie, 18 Robinette Road. I had a question because it's on a borrowing topic. I wanted to understand, have we reached the point on the South School project where the final amount has been established with contracts so that we have so that we could actually establish the borrowing that's got to be issued? Because I know we already borrowed 25 million. There's roughly 35 million left to go, right? I meant South School, right? If I didn't say that, I meant South School.
Dave, I mean, I'd have to refer that question to Biz. I mean, she's the expert. I don't have the answer to that question.
Okay.
We could get the answer for you, though.
Okay, so my understanding is the next step would be to establish that final number so that we could actually issue the final bond. And that's going to be at around 35 million, which is after you've subtracted the 3.3, I believe.
Right.
And again, you're referring to the South School.
The South School project.
Right, so they're going out to bid for the project, so that would be the first step, right, to determine what the bid comes in at. Once you get the bid and the contingencies established, you know what the price is. Yeah, so I'll just repeat what I said. The project has to go out for bid.
Yeah.
And then when it goes out for bid, you'll establish what that contractual number is. If we borrowed, say our article was for borrowing 100 million, I'm just throwing a round number out there, and the bid came in at 77 million. The contract is held to 77 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so you won't know what the full borrowing amount is until the project's complete. There's change orders and things like that that are applied to that.
Yeah, so the thing that the reason I'm bringing it up, so I'll get into a little bit of the comment aspect, is that the first 25 million is based on the AA2 bond rating that we already had. And at some point, we can go to Moody's and the bond markets to say, are we worthy of a better credit rating? And there's different things that the town manager and other people on the team have been doing in order to try to improve our situation so that we could get a better bond rating. So I'm kind of trying to get a better handle on, will we get that better bond rating before we have to take out the $35 million? Because why would we settle for AA2 if we could get, let's say, AA1 or AAA?
It's a great question, Dave. As you know, they do a series of bands before they do the long-term borrowing, and they wait as long as they can to have the omnibus debt established. The project will be done by the time they do that. You're completely right about this. If we're in the kind of shape a year from now or 2 years from now when that project comes to a completion, before they go out for their final borrowing, we will ask Moody's to do another evaluation and
So
consider it.
did you say it's 2 years out before we have to establish
Final
that?
borrowing?
Typically, and don't quote me on this, on the exact term, but typically the bands will go somewhere between 3 and 5 years during the length of the construction project until we actually know what the final amount is of the project. That's when we would go for a long-term borrowing.
I believe that's what they did with the high school.
Right.
Okay, so will we, Right, so will we be going to them saying, can you reassess where we are before we're exposed to locking in a rate that could possibly be better than what we would get otherwise?
Yes, we will. And we will, even if we do it annually, but even if it comes up mid-year, we'll go to the bond agency. And just point of information, Madam Chair, as all of you know, Biz will be leaving the end of March, and she'll be retiring. And the professional that we hired is the renowned Massachusetts expert in bonding and debt service and managing debt and bond agencies. She's an extraordinarily talented professional, and I'm sure she'll be all over that.
So thank you for that. And through you, Madam Chair, I'm trying to understand also other things that contribute to getting a better bond rating are things like what you're going to be talking about after this public hearing with the financial policies. So will there be a deadline established for when the select board has to vote in those policies to help us with the same borrowing situation on the South School?
The process for that is the board is anxiously waiting for the input from the FinCom. They asked for it. They're looking forward to getting it. They will make amendments to the policy that's before them right now based upon much of that input. My bet is within a month they will codify that policy into the books.
Okay, so the Finance Committee has to do something over the next, say, 3 weeks
They've done
in order to give the select board enough time to review what they've done.
The Finance Committee, I believe, has
So,
done that.
Can you, yeah, okay, for people's information, for the Finance Committee to discuss, to continue discussing the proposed draft financial policies is on our agenda for tonight. We will take it up after we do close the public hearing and do the votes on the town meeting articles, because those need to be done first so that the report can be sent out, prepared, printed, and sent out to town meeting members in time for the, in accordance, 14 days before the special town meeting. So that will be our first item of business after this. The second one would be to continue to discuss and see what recommendations we want to make. As people may or may, as the town manager alluded, Biz could not be here tonight for unexpected reasons, and totally out, not under her control at all. So she is going to try to answer questions that we can submit through writing as well to get us some answers. So if we continue, if we feel as a committee we need more time than tonight to make more recommendations about the policy, we can schedule another meeting to do that.
Well, that's what I was hoping to hear, is that if nothing else, I'll rest right now and just look to appeal to you to say a timeline to understand exactly how much time you really do have anyway.
Right.
To bring it back.
I suspect, given a variety of circumstances, if we needed more time, especially because Biz was not able to be available, I suspect the select board might wait another week or two for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The board genuinely wants the Finance Committee's input.
So
if it's going to be
I
delayed,
think that's something we could work and communicate on.
they will wait.
All right? Because we'd rather do it right. Cynthia?
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. My outburst was misinterpreted. I would never insult Lisa, Peter, and David and myself. Out of a population of 30,000, this is a public hearing, there's 4 of us here. Whether I agree with anybody's remarks or not, I was cheering for the fact that less than $3 million, well, that $3 million would make my taxes maybe 30 cents lower.
No problem. I don't think anybody interpreted anything. Any other comments on this article? Dawn?
Thank you very much. I have one simple question, and it might sound a little stupid. Taking that $3 million and putting in there, would that impact severely on other services that would be like maybe that would be needed for the O'Donnell Middle School? Because that fund is a finite amount, you know, it's not like growing or anything like that to reduce that. What if something happened within, like, the O'Donnell Middle School, the AC broke down, that we'd have to borrow money for that? I'm just asking, I apologize.
We couldn't use it for that because that's not a debt excluded borrowing, so we can only be transferred to another debt excluded borrowing.
Madam Chair, if I may just follow up on the other end of that. The school has submitted to Mark its capital plan for the upcoming year, which is about $900,000. And we're going to support that. And that's anticipating maintenance and repair at all of their schools. Should they have an emergency, we have a fund within our budget. It's not a ton of money given the size of the real estate, but a fund for such emergencies that we would come to the aid of the school if necessary, if they had a major mechanical breakdown.
And to be honest, if there was, I mean, we have a finance committee reserve fund that we could use for something like that. And if there was a significant thing that needed to be addressed right away, there's always having a special town meeting, which would be an appropriate use for a special town meeting.
Thank you.
But it is important to know that in the budget, through the finance committee, we can transfer from department to department by going through the finance committee.
Right. So there are
Mid-year.
ways that we could do that, and we will likely hear more about that when we are doing the budget hearings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else on the Article 2? Not hearing anything else, seeing anyone that wants to speak, we're going to move on to Article 3, which is a request for supplemental funds to do the outside of the community center, AKA train station.
Madam Chair, while Paul's coming to the front desk, I want to announce, and you and I discussed this earlier today, the interior of the community center is now complete. It'll be furnished in the next 30 days. It'll be beautiful. Prior to town meeting, we're going to host a reception at the community center for town meeting members, the FinCom, and the Select Board to see the inside of the community center and for Paul to walk you through the plan of the exterior hardscape, which will be on all four sides of the building. That's what he's going to discuss tonight. That's what the CPC article is about. But we're hoping that you do join us on, it'll be advertised probably tomorrow for all town meeting members, FinCom, and the CPC and the Select Board. So with that, Madam Chair, through you, I'll turn it over to Paul.
Can you tell us when it will be, or is that we have to wait till tomorrow?
The brilliant idea only came up about an hour ago.
Okay.
So we just have to, and that's when I communicated to
Okay,
you.
thank you.
We'll set the date and send it out to all the members here and to the town meeting members. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that was going to be my question. What day?
I like to be invited places.
Thank you, Paul Jaffoon, Public Works, Facilities. So as the town manager just said, the interior of the building restoration is complete. It's beautiful. It's a really great building. To put a bow on it and wrap this up nice and have everything ready for our June 13th event, we need to expedite the exterior restoration project, which includes pavers, cobblestones, new lighting under the canopies, new ground lighting, 3 new flagpoles.
Planters.
Yeah, we're gonna, we've already restored the wood on the exterior and the canopies and the trim work. Now we'll repaint all that before we hopefully wrap up the rest of the exterior work. There'll be benches, places to sit, furniture, exterior furniture, like I said, new lighting, trellises, signboards, wrought iron fencing, bollards to keep out, you know, for parking area safety measures, ADA compliance, yes. Well, not the same number of parking spaces that we own currently will remain. It's just gonna, like I said, put a nice bow on the project. And we will have some renderings for you to see. And when we receive them, we'll send them out, and we'll put those online, we'll put them on the website, we'll have them at town meeting.
If you get any before I print the book, if you can get them to Mark, we can add them in there. But
We'll do.
I like visuals.
Yeah,
So,
yep.
Excuse me, so that everybody understands, the money, the amount that is being requested is $985,000 to come from the CPC funding. It's coming from, and this is in the article, in the motion that I send out, the copy of the proposed motions that I send out to, I emailed out to everybody in the committee right before this meeting. But just so that people who are watching understand, it's all coming from reserves of various CPC funds. It's not a borrowing article. So we would be looking, it says $764 from the FY 2026 historic resources budgeted reserve, and $752,582 from the budgeted annual reserve, and $231,654 from a historic reserves fund balance. So those are where the funds for the CPC funds are coming from. Any questions from members of the committee? Comments?
If I may, before I forget,
Oh.
Madam Chair, excuse me.
No problem, sorry.
So in a letter to the CPC to formally request this project be done before FY '27 and within the current FY '26 budget, we went back to the CPC for their support, and that was the second time they unanimously voted to accept the project and approve the project. Local Historical Commission unanimously voted to approve and accept the project. Mass Historic has been notified, and they have no objections to the project. So, we're pretty excited about that. Just wanted to clarify that before any question, before I forgot, actually. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, on this project, if I may, like the community center, we're going to GC this project. So we're not hiring a general contractor with all the markups and contingencies. We're hiring separately the paving company, the patio. We're hiring separately the electrician, the landscaping. We're hiring separately the painting contractor, and Paul and I will manage the site. So the only reason we can do all of this work for this amount of money is we're not hiring a general contractor with all of their markups, contingencies, and the like, and change orders. In addition to that, the DPW will be doing all of the site prep. They'll be digging down the 2 feet on all 4 sides of the site. They'll be building the benches, they'll be building the gardens, they'll be planting the gardens, and that's how we know we can do it well within this budget.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to questions from the committee first, then public. Chet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Almost $1 million to do this, and most of the work's going to be done by DPW. And Tom Coulter's going to be painting, because he's a painting contractor. And so my question is, why is it going to cost $100 million? Do we need a pavilion out there? Do we need, just, redo the work, the woodwork and stuff like that, and paint? Do we need, gardens? Is that going to take away from the MBTA parking lot? No?
It's a very complex project. There's multiple trades. We're just trying to save money on services that we can provide. We can't do the industrial painting. We can't do the electrical. We can't do the plumbing to hook up the outside irrigation. We can buy the wrought iron fencing, but we can install it, but we still have to buy it. It's going to be hard bids from all these people. We'll see exactly what it's going to cost. Maybe it won't be $985,000. Maybe it'll be $600,000, and we'll be spending less money and giving it back. But to answer the gentleman's last question, why doesn't Stoughton deserve something this nice?
Mr. Coulter, that's not what I'm asking. My question is, it's almost $1 million to do the outside. Why wasn't that not in the original contract when they did the inside in the whole building? I mean, repointing, did they
Sure.
fix the clock?
Sure. It wasn't in the original contract because we could only put out to bid the money we had allocated, which was the $2.3 million from the state. We can't ask to have people bid on work that we don't have allocations for, resources for. We had $2.3 million to work with. We developed a scope of work not to exceed $2.3 million. In order to finish the project, as you know, town meeting gave us an additional $300,000+ at last year's town meeting to finish the interior. We didn't anticipate finishing the outside section until we finished the inside section, and we could prove to people that we could do that. As a point of information, you know, they say you'd rather be lucky than good any day. Last night, the United States House of Representatives passed my request for $1 million to do that outside. If it passes the Senate in this week's negotiation on the budget resolution, then we'll be withdrawing this article, and the federal government will finish it. Now, will that happen? You know as much about Washington as I do. But I will tell you, last night, Steve Lynch called me this morning, it passed the House, and now it's off to the Senate. And we're not talking about an annual budget. It's the budget resolution that they're in negotiation with. There's a lot of horse trading. We may be fortunate and it stays in there. Who knows? We could get washed out. But we're in the game everywhere, trying to get outside resources to pay for our community center.
And we would like it done before June 13th because of our 300th celebration there.
June 13th is the community neighborhood block party. We expect thousands of people. It will be an event like we've never had before in this town. There'll be the loading and the sealing of a time capsule with letters from all of you and from whatever town citizens and residents want to say to the community 50 years later. The time capsule is the safe that was in the ticket office for 130 years. It's been refinished, refurnished. The floor has been reinforced to hold the 3,800 pounds. Again, it's another example. We got a change order request for $20,000 for them to put in the stilts that go to the basement, lodged in concrete. Paul's guys did it for under $1,000. As you know, we got a change order for $22,000 to fill the major seams in the paneling walls that was not in the original bid. You know, they cut their prices short to fit within our budget. So we did all that caulking and painting internally for the cost of a laborer for 4 days. So we save money everywhere we can to try and manage the expense to the lowest point possible. And that's why we're not hiring a general contractor.
No, thank you.
May I continue, ma'am?
Sure.
Okay. I know what you did, and I know what Paul did and his crew at the train station or the community center, and I know what you did, Mr. Coulter, you know, painting, caulking, the whole thing, and I appreciate that. They saved a lot of money for the town, but, you know, looking at almost $1 million for the outside of the building, you know, that should have been in the original contract. That's my point. You know, why should, what? I'm not allowed to speak?
No, you're allowed to speak. I'm just saying, we just kind of just went over that point.
I know.
agree, it should have been in the original contract, but they couldn't put it into the original contract. So,
Madam Chair, Section 30B of the procurement law prohibits putting out for bid a project for which we do not have the money.
okay.
Well, should have got the money.
Okay, anyone else from the committee? Dawn?
Hello, this is John. Thank you very much. I have a simple, stupid question on the, on the acclimation of like getting the cobblestones and everything like that. Have you like reached out to for other bids or maybe other large companies like AA Will and said, hey, if you donate you can get a little placard that says donated by AA Will, or go to the electrical company and say, hey, listen, if you give us their services, because my father Al, which is a good priest uncle of mine did his basilica all by donations. He said, "Hey, I know you're a plumber. Can you do?" So, like, I was just wondering if to save the community $985,000. That's all.
John, I love that you asked, through you, Madam Chair. I love that you asked that question. Not only are we doing all the excavation of the materials, TL Edwards has already agreed to take the disposal of all that material for nothing. He's also agreed to give us all the crushed stone to backfill it, which would have been a $20,000 purchase. The granite paving that's done around the building would cost us somewhere around $30,000. Mr. Edwards has agreed to do it for the cost of the granite, which is $11,000. So we're shopping around for all of that stuff right now. The fence company, we're doing it for just the materials. We're doing the installation. We may find that we bring this project in for the commercial price would have been $1 million. With everything that Paul's team is doing, we could be bringing this project in at $600,000, which means the rest goes back into the general fund. It's a great question.
Thank you, because I was figuring a lot of companies in and around Stoughton, like that are big, like AA Will, if you talk to them, I'm sure they would be willing to donate some cobblestone or something like that so they can get their name out there.
It's just so, Donna's so right about this. When we put together the spec through Fran's office, we're only asking for the labor to install. That supply, the materials will be purchased by us.
And if anyone's watching the meeting and wants to donate some supplies for it, go see the town manager. So, anyone else from the committee? Ian? Lisa, I do see you. And you have a question too. Yeah, I will, but like.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had two questions. One was, you said that any unused funds going back into the general fund, as opposed, but they've come out of the CPC.
Ian, I stand corrected. It has to go back to where it came from.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. And then the second question that I had was around the exterior lighting. Just out of curiosity, is this something that would be on, like, from all the time? Or I know that because it's a community building, we have people using it, is only on when people are actually actively using it.
You asked that question almost like I wrote it. As many of you know, I met with Senator Bill, help me. Bill, our state senator. We met with Bill Driscoll at the community center last week. We've put in a request through the governor's office for $150,000 to replace all of the MBTA lighting on our property. And it would all be in period lighting that looks like lanterns from the old days. All the conduit that's ugly as heck running across the hill will all be taken out and it'll all be put in internally. $150,000 will pay for the entire lighting package for the whole project, ground lighting and ceiling lighting. I heard from the governor's office this morning. They said yes to the ask. They just have to find the pot that it'll come out of. That will reduce this project alone $150,000.
Nice.
Did you have those other questions I asked you to ask?
Mark?
Yeah, one of my is just so people don't know about the building, if they're just checking in on this. This is a historic building, and is it registered as a historic building?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Mark, that's the reason we had to go to the Mass Historical. They came down, they looked at the plan, they studied the building, and they signed off on the upgrades we're making.
Okay. My second was somebody asked me about the train track pieces that are used as ballards now. Are those staying, or are they removing, or are they going to be used back into the project?
Those will be coming out, and modern-day ballards will be going in. We'll give those away to citizens if they want them.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other committee members? Lisa? Then anyone else from the public that would like to comment, questions?
Okay, hi, Lisa Lyons, Precinct 2. So I just want to start off by saying it would be nice to give Stoughton every nice thing that we could imagine. However, I would like this committee and the people who would vote on this article to understand that our taxpayers are paying for 3 debt exclusions right now, with more on the horizon. The town, we were told that the 2.3 million was going to take care of the renovation of the train depot. Against my judgment, town meeting this past October voted to give another $350,000 to this train depot project. I think it is unconscionable to put more tax burden on the taxpayers for a want. This is a want. Would it be nice and beautiful? Yes, but it is not a need for the town. So for that reason, I hope this committee members understand, we have an obligation to the taxpayers to be cognizant of their burdens. And that's all I'll say right here.
Thank you. Ms. Delury?
Thank you, Madam Chair. David Lurie, 18 Robinette Road. I kind of disagree with the previous speaker. So it's not a new tax because it's already taxed. It sits in a fund. We could argue, and I'd be all for arguing against the amount that they do take out of our taxes for CPC, but that's a different argument for a different day.
Thank you.
This money is piling up. It's got to be spent. As far as does this have merit for being used? I think it does. I personally have an interest in it. I think a lot of people already know we're trying to put a show on in April. The interior is done, so it's perfectly adequate for what I'm hoping to be able to do in April. The exterior, I know it's being kind of put in front of us now as a special town meeting article so we could have something nice in the summer for our 300th. Also, I think it's pretty easy to find merit in that. So I'm not so much against this article, and I'm glad that the historical preservation is being considered, like a previous speaker on the committee has mentioned, because that was the most important thing on my mind. It seems like on the interior, there's a lot more latitude in making some pretty interesting changes, where the exterior, I'm pretty sure they're pretty stringent about what you can do on the exterior. So I'm in favor of the article, and I'm glad as to where we are at this point in the game with that.
You, Lauren?
I just have a quick question. I actually forget this. So are we going to be, if people want to have functions or whatever, they pay for whatever function they want to have there, correct?
So, Madam Chair, through you, we're working out the details now, Lauren, but some things we do know. We know that it'll be reserved for only Stoughton residents and employees of Stoughton. We know that there will be a nominal fee for anybody that wants to rent it for a private event, and that nominal fee will be simply to cover the cost of janitorial services and the cost of a host to be on site. There's a lot of very beautiful, expensive furniture there, or will be there, paid for by the state, and we want to make sure it's not moved all around and scraping the hardwood floors, and that people are treating it as if it's their home, because it is a home for all community members. So that will total probably $300 when the competing rental that we used for the Christmas party last year cost me $1,300. So it'll be run at cost because it's only for Stoughton residents. Should they choose to have alcohol there, an alcohol serving, that will be a contract directly between the renter, whoever chooses to rent it, and a company called the Poor Guys, which is a traveling alcohol permit around the state with all tips certified bartenders. That would be a private exchange between them.
And then just one more question. So say we wanted to have something for the town, we wanted to have a band come and play outside on the ground.
That's the plan.
That could be a moneymaker for the town also, is
Of
that
course.
correct?
Somebody may choose to hire it to do a fundraiser.
Right.
And if it's a resident, it'll be charged at cost. Town meetings there, of course, when Mark begins the outside work on this building in the very early spring. There may be finance committee meetings over there because there'll be no parking here. So that, of course, doesn't cost anything. That's a town expense.
Yeah, so I'm just saying there's potential for us to make money with really making the outside.
Not the
nice
objective,
and
but there'll be an opportunity.
Right. Okay. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, may I don't choose to debate this. I won't respond to this after I say it, but I want to make a point about taxpayer money, if you don't mind, because I hear that comment quite frequently. The reason Paul and I spent 3 weekends, the day after Christmas and New Year's Day, to do what we did over there is out of respect for taxpayer money. The reason his guys saved us $20,000 is out of respect for taxpayer money. The reason we're doing the hardscape the way we're doing it, with our own internal resources, our own contacts for funding, our own contacts for providing materials, as Don pointed out, is because of our utmost respect for taxpayers' burden. The reason your municipal budget is only 3% is out of respect for taxpayer money. And although the gentlelady has the absolute right to say it as often as she wants, and I'll never stop her from saying it, I just feel compelled to tell you, the Finance Committee, we run a very tight ship. We consolidate departments so as to save money. We hold down wages at 2% this year, although inflation is at 3% this year. We're doing all the hard things needed. We have 23 fewer employees now than we did 3 years ago. Fewer, not more. And so the team right here in front of us, and I'd include Biz in that, every day think about taxpayers' exposure. And I just feel compelled to say that. Perhaps I'll respond that way once out of every 10 times I hear it, but you're all committed through your service to taxpayers' burden. There's not one person in this town who's committed to taxpayer burden. It's every single person looking at me right now and everybody on this panel. And we do it every single day, not just for public events.
Right. Well, thank you. I'll hold you to the 1 out of 10 times limit on that. I think it's always just good for everyone to remember we're all here with the same good intentions, even if we have different opinions about what to do. So let's assume like we want to respect that. I personally just would make a comment. This is the type of project that I see the whole purpose of creating something like the CPC when we created it 20-something years ago, was so that we could set aside money to have it to do projects like this that would benefit the town but may not necessarily rise to like a safety issue or something where we must do it. So I think, I'm glad to see us using that money for it. If there's any other comments from anyone? Quick.
One quick question. You are going to hear from the senators, you think, soon on $1 million?
It's Congressman Lynch, John, and it's Senator Driscoll. That's not on the $1 million. That's on the 150 for the lighting. Okay. It's out of Bill's hands now. I'm now working directly with the governor's office. They have assured me that the ask is reasonable and that we'll get it. They just need some time to tell us from what part they're going to take it. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Anyone want to speak on this? Lisa, briefly, please.
So my only concern was with that Mr. Lynch with the gates. Remember, we all clapped about the quiet gates that never came to fruition. Promises made, not kept.
Right. I think whatever happens in Washington, if it happens, it's nice, but we have plans to go on regardless. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Seeing that anybody else wants to speak on any of the articles, I would like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing on all articles related to the special town meeting on March 2nd.
So moved.
Thank you. Becca has made a motion to close the public hearing. I need a second. Marcus, second. All those in favor of the motion to close the public hearing, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Anyone abstaining? Chet, are you voting in? Yeah, thank you. So it's a unanimous vote to close the public hearing. At this point, we as a committee need to have discussion on these articles to make recommendations. So as like we did before for the last special town meeting, we're going to make positive recommendations. The motion would be to recommend approval to town meeting of the article, and then we can discuss and vote accordingly. And if we vote in favor of the motion, we are recommending approval. If we vote against the motion, we are not recommending approval.
Madam Chair, on the next agenda item, as we pointed out earlier, we won't be responding to the input or the questions without our CFO present. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. We're not on that article yet. Item of the agenda yet.
We're just waiting for when we can be excused, that's all.
Oh, I would like you to stay for some of that discussion so that you could hear it in case there are articles or questions that are not necessarily, that do not necessarily have, require business input. There are things that you could speak on.
Before she left on her brief leave this morning, she warned us not to do that. Have you ever crossed Biz?
Yeah, no, all right. You could listen. However, Mr. Gaffoon does not need to stay.
Thank you.
Good job. Carolyn, could I say one good thing? It's not on your agenda, but it's just information.
Sure.
I wanted to congratulate everybody, this finance committee, because you may or may not have heard, I know some of you have heard, we do have the property next door. We've acquired the property next door. We actually have the deed recorded at the registry of deeds for the price that you all came up with, the $250,000. So congratulations to you and town meeting. You know, it's actually pretty exciting. We're actually working up the design as we speak.
It was actually pretty exciting on that one.
Yeah.
It was like, come up with a number.
Yeah. No, and thank you to the property owner for working with us.
And thank you to everybody, and thank you for your persistence in getting that. Okay, on Article 1, do we have a motion to recommend approval? So Lauren has made the motion to recommend approval of Article 1, the dissolving the VNA enterprise account. I need a second of that.
Second.
Becca has seconded it. Do we need to have any discussion, or can we take a vote? All those in favor of the motion to recommend approval of the Article 1, which is to dissolve the enterprise account for the Visiting Nurses Association, raise your hand and say aye. Okay, sorry. So the nurses, please in the mic, yep.
This, obviously, it's been discussed with the nurses, and they're okay with this.
All the employees are fully briefed
Okay, perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, okay.
and supportive.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 1, raise your hands and say aye. 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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so the motion that is recommended approval, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 10? 10, 0, 0, 0. Thank you. Moving on to Article 2, when we have a motion to recommend approval of Article 2 to town meeting and the transfer of funds to the South Elementary School project from the high school elementary, from not the high school elementary, from the high school project, in the amount of roughly the exact amount, $3,303,590. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Becca's made it. John seconded it. So do we need to have any discussion on this motion?
Madam Chair, so this is the money left over from the high school?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, having that, all those in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 2 to town meeting, raise your hands and say aye. 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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. I'll record that as we're recommending approval of 10-0-0. All right, we'll move on to Article 3. Do we have a motion to recommend approval for Article 3 to town meeting?
So moved.
All right, so we got it made by Becca and seconded by Laura. Any discussion on Article 3? Chet?
Yes, I think the $985,000 is too expensive for that project, and I'd like to see it reduced, but I'm not going to vote for this.
Okay. Any other comments, discussions, questions? We can call for a vote on Article 3. All those in favor of recommending approval of Article 3 to town meeting, raise your hands and say aye. Can we just hold them up so Mark, we can get the count? Eight. Oh, 9. Okay. All those opposed? Thank you. Any abstentions? I don't think I think it was 9-1-0. Thank you. Now that we have handled that business for the special town meeting, I can put together the book. Fortunately. Hey. I have a little bit better idea of what I'm doing with it this time. It's also 3 articles, and Mark Tisdale already has all the background information, so. And we already have the motions. So I basically have to type this in. Okay. Our next item on our agenda is to continue our discussion on the proposed select board financial policies. I understand that, there are certain policy questions that people have. I have a couple that I will share with you. We will collect them and share them with Biz, who is not able to be here tonight to answer them. And then I know I have a couple, but like if we can take those discussions, we probably, to be honest, to make final recommendations, we will probably need another meeting unless, just because it's a lot to take in and we won't have answers to everyone. So we can either see about meeting early in February, or we can wait and do it when we start our public hearings at the end of February. And people do not need to let me know tonight, but if you could let me know in the next week or so, the preference. Yeah, if anyone has a strong preference either way, let me know over the next week. Otherwise, I will just decide what feels right to me at the moment.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a memo from Ben that he'd like to
could
add
you
in.
read that for us, please?
Okay. This is what he wrote.
I think I sent a copy of this out to everyone on the email when I sent out the agenda and everything earlier this week.
Did
so that
everybody read it?
But if you could read it anyway, because not everybody in the public or anyone watching, if anyone is still watching this meeting.
So this is from Ben Carr. Says, here's a language I'd like to add to the Stoughton finance policy. It's suggestion in the meeting on 1/14/26. As control for maintaining consistent capital investment, the town will seek to replace maturing debt obligations. My eyes are bad here. Maintained at a target level representing 4 to 6% of the general fund revenues. The town would also seek to fund a greater proportion of debt obligations form with the base goal of eventually achieving a consistent level of annual non-exclusive debt service equivalent to 3 of general fund revenues. I would like to have this inserted in the language on page 38 under section 2. Please make it a bullet item. Nothing needs to be deleted. Please move the existing language down in bullet order. I have been in contact with Zig Blake, who was the chief of the Financial Management Bureau with the DLS. He confirmed this in the current standard guidelines of management municipal debt. Regards, Ben. So
Thank you.
I would make a motion to enter that.
You want to make a motion to add it into the recommendations?
Yes.
Okay, I'm given that we likely will be coming back again,
Would you like me to rescind my motion and make it?
yes, so that like we can get them all
I'll make
together
it-
and
okay.
then just make, once everyone has had any other questions and answered any changes that are proposed, we can put them together in one document, and I
That's-
will add that in
that's
there
fine with
then.
me.
I think, given that Biz is not here, able to be here tonight, that would probably
I
be
just
the
want
best way.
to read out on the
No,
record
I
for-
understand, and I know he emailed and said that, he wanted
Okay.
to do that, but we didn't, this was before we all knew that Biz was not going to be able to make it.
Okay.
So, any other people have questions, comments that they would like to ask? Now that some of you, we had a chance to read more of it. Marty?
I have 4 that I identified because I hadn't read all of it before. On page 6 is item D and E. D says that the town manager sends the CIP to the select board on the 15th of by the 15th of January. E says they have to pass it on to the finance committee by the 3rd Tuesday of January. If the year starts on a Tuesday, then those are the same day, because the 15th would be the 3rd Tuesday. I think that C and D should be on the same basis. If one goes on the day of the month, the other one should be on the day of the month, not the day of the week. So, for example, I suggest E be by the 22nd of January. That way the select board would have it for 7 days, no matter what day of the month the 15th landed on.
Thank you. I have a question. Anyone that can remember? I'm having a blank. By our town charter, when is the select board's, when are we supposed to get the budget from the select board?
Madam Chair, I don't have it, Marty's language, or I don't have the policy in front of me, but I believe, Marty, you may be referring to the capital plan.
Yes.
We've got to have our operating budget, and I think that's the operating budget by December 31st.
No, the proposed plan is for you to have to operate. I'm asking about, my question was about the charter, and he's talking about, what are you talking about?
This is the
Page 6.
capital,
Oh, the
capital
capital.
improvement plan.
I see, okay.
The select board gets it by the 15th. They have to get rid of it by the 3rd Tuesday, which could be the same day.
So perhaps it should be within so many days after it is submitted to the select board, it is voted on and given to the finance committee, or whatever you want to do with it.
Yes, and page 33 has the identical problem, the same wording. So that's in 2 places. Another item has to do with page 46, has to do with investing town funds and the priority of the characteristics of words invested.
What page?
46. Item 5, the second line says, following the property order should be order shown investing town funds. It says liquidity, safety, and yield. That's the wrong sequence. It should be safety, liquidity, and yield. There's subparagraphs below that put it in the right sequence. Just that statement has them in the wrong sequence.
Oh, okay, so the way it's written at the top should be changed in order to reflect what's written in the
Right.
bullets.
The item 5, the second line needs 2 words swapped, liquidity and safety. And the only other item is on page 117, where a sentence is not completed. At the top of the page, the first paragraph, the sentence isn't ended. is the department's monthly revenue report stating, there's no period, and there needs to be more words there. Stating what?
Oh, yeah, bullets, sub-bullet C or whatever is just, it's just left off.
Madam Chair, Marty, that was just a test to see if you were reading it.
To see if I read all the
Well,
way
you
this
passed.
far.
You get an A.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Marty, if you would mind, like at some point, like over the weekend, can you just like send me, send Mark and I an email with those, just so that like when I put them all together, I
Yes.
don't forget them? Because I'm writing them down, but. Anyone else have any questions about it that you'd like? I have a couple questions or more comments that I'm going to share. I have a couple concerns.
Carolyn, do you want me to read Joel's?
Oh, yes, please go ahead and read Joel's first. Thank you, Becca.
Okay, so Joel Woke had sent in a couple of comments, and he wasn't able to be here tonight.
I will share those as well if I have not with everyone. I think I've shared them. I don't know if I didn't share them with you. I don't know, but I will share them.
I have reviewed this is from Joel. I have reviewed the financial policies manual and compared it to similar documents from the towns of Clinton, Hanson, Dedham, and Uxbridge. All of them were very similar and I assume followed DLS guidelines. I do have some comments. Page 25, top, reserve stabilization funds. Maintain overall general fund reserves, including the town's general purpose stabilization fund and free cash at an amount not less than 9% of the town's projected general fund operating budget. None of the others had this combined limit and mostly used ranges. Capital plan, page 32, top, I believe paragraph 5. For projects other than those related to enterprise fund programs, grant programs, and the CPA, the target for spending the general fund capital projects exclusive of those projects financed outside the limits of Proposition 2.5 shall target a minimum expenditure of 3 to 5% of the prior fiscal year general fund budget. This target can be met by general fund operating expenditures, free cash, capital, stabilization funds, and non-exempt debt service or any other combination thereof. I am not very comfortable with minimum and would prefer to just have a range. Debt and investment, page 38, middle. 2B, the town will endeavor to keep total tax-supported debt service, i.e. net of debt exclusions and self-supporting debt, between 3 and 7% of total general fund revenues or less. From the town of Dedham, the town will observe a debt service ceiling of 7.5% as calculated based on the town operating budget, as stated in Article 3 of the annual town meeting, minus total debt service. The town of Hanson also states a maximum of 8%. In this case, I would prefer a maximum amount as a policy instead of a range. Debt and investment, page 39, middle, 4F. Aim to maintain a long-term debt schedule so that at least 50% of outstanding debt principal can be retired at the end of 10 years. This appears to favor 20-year bonds, which I am in favor of. Debt and investment, page 40, bottom. A debt model will be presented to the Select Board and the Committee on Finance and Taxation reflecting debt as of June 30th of the preceding fiscal year, including issued debt and authorized but not yet issued debt to include projected date of issuance and debt schedule estimate. I totally support this since it will help FinCom evaluate new capital projects which will be bonded. And that's all from Joel.
Thank you. I had a couple of comments or concerns. Mine are all at the beginning of the budget, more at the beginning of the proposed policy, more on the procedure about the budget. My concerns are general, that are basically when we talk about the budget, annual operating budget process. I'm concerned that some of the policies that are, some of the directives that are being put into the policy involve the select board making requirements of the finance committee and the school committee, neither of organization of which they have any authority over. And I'm also concerned with some of them going against what's in the charter. I would rather, like how the budget process is in the charter, where the municipal town manager and select board are responsible for presenting a municipal budget, and the school committee is responsible for presenting a school budget, and the finance committee is responsible for presenting a balanced budget to town meeting. That's the structure of it. I would prefer that, as for the budgeting process of it, that it be considered, that it be consistent with that, mostly because I think if we have different policies and the statements there, it leads to more arguments over who has the authority to do what. And I do believe personally that budgeting is at most a legislative function of government. We take what's submitted from the executive branch of the government, which in Stoughton is the combination of the school committee and the select board, and we put together a budget as our committee is representative of the legislative branch town meeting, and I believe that's our job, and that if anyone's going to make any regulations or decisions about how we conduct our business, it would be the finance committee and not the select board. So I also believe that we should not have multiple. I'd rather not have arguments when we don't need to have arguments, and having different forms of language out there about processes leads to arguments. So I would like those processes at the beginning to reflect what's the charter rules, and that the financial policies that the select board is going to vote on to govern themselves be focused on the areas of the financial process of which the select board is responsible for.
Madam Chair, the select board will agree with that completely.
Thank you. So I think, I understand and that things have changed. I would also just caution on some of the deadlines. I understand, like, one of the proposals for the select board, for the town manager to have the school committee budget by like November. I will speak as a former school committee member. That's an extremely large budget, larger than any department in the municipal, larger than the entire municipal side of the budget. And school starts in September. Getting that budget done by November would be getting it done by December 31st is extremely difficult, and there's a lot of things you can't necessarily forecast because you don't know certain costs in December that are going to come up for the next 6 months or the year. Because remember, school starts in September, so things are just really getting going. So I didn't like those deadlines either, but
Again, I and the board concur completely. What we're trying to do is comply with the charter.
right. So
It's the charter that needs to change.
So that's my comments are basically, I don't think they're objectionable or anything, but I
Not
just
at
want to
all.
make sure that like things to comply so that it's clear what,
This is the first year, Madam Chair, based upon a section of the charter that I discovered, that we passed the budget on absent the school budget. Because the charter not only recommends that, it directs that.
Right.
So as you know, we passed the budget on to you absent the school budget. And whatever process they follow is between them, you, and the town meeting.
right. And I will send out the budgets to everyone once I finish up the stuff on the special town meeting. So those are generally my comments. If anyone else has any comments or questions, I'm going to ask you to put them in email to me. We'll compile a list and we'll send them off to you. And we can then decide whether or not what recommendations we want to make and vote on once we have answers to the questions, which, we'll see about. I'll also see about like when Biz is feeling up to answering our questions, because she does not need to do that tomorrow. Anything else? Dawn?
I'm sorry, did we ever get that Collins report? That was my question. Sorry.
All right. What is the Collins report as these financial policies? That's the product. Okay. So as I was, they worked with, as I understand the process, and this was like, what was the original, this came up, I believe John brought it up at the last meeting, about where was the original document. The way this was developed was members of the committee wrote together a draft themselves. And then they submitted that draft to the Collins Center to review and make changes. And then the committee worked together to produce this, which they're going to present to the select board and are asking us for our input on. Does that answer your question? I know there were a few confusing questions, so.
Well, I think if I remember Jonna asking if there was an original that this was.
Right, and the original did not come from the Collins Center. Like, that's what we were thinking at the other meeting, like, they had a model set of policies, and that we took them and marked them up and kept what we wanted and didn't keep what we didn't wanted and came up with this. But the process that was used was that people, not me, sat down and wrote out policies. They compiled their own, and then they sent it to the Collins Center. So it wasn't quite what we envisioned the process was.
Madam Chair, may I elaborate on that? Mm-hmm. What the Collins Center and the town negotiated was the table of content for the report.
Okay.
The report could have been half that size, it could have been twice that size. It really came down to what policies the town felt they needed, that were existing policies that needed to be codified, or policies that we needed guidance from the experts at the Collins Center.
Right.
So what you have before you is the only report we have received from the Collins Center. We started with the table of content, and then interrupted by business illness, a year and a half of drafts going back and forth on sections. That is the first complete plan. The final copy went back to the Collins Center where they refined it. That is the first and only report we've received from the Collins Center. I'm not sure what the audience is looking for, but I can tell you with certainty that that is the only report we have received from the Collins Center.
Right. It's just for the Finance Committee, but I mean, you know, yeah, I will. So, and I know you gave me a copy of the scope of work, which, of course, did not make it into my bag tonight, and I apologize. So, I mean, but, you know, the project was not necessarily was not to do an audit of the town's financial practices at all, or financial situation at all. It was not an audit itself. You know, the town is audited, we do our audits, whatever, that's a whole separate process. So there was no report ever made that was there to say, oh, this is what you're doing right, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you need to fix. And that's what I believe you're saying.
I am, Madam Chair. We did a lot of work before we engaged the Collins Center. We were referred by DOR to towns that had very high quality financial policy manuals. We collected those manuals from every town. Before we hired the Collins Center, we looked through to decide what are the greatest, most significant needs of our town right now. We then engaged Von Anokian. I say engaged, they didn't charge us. Von Anokian and John Anzavino, the esteemed chairs, former chairs and vice chairs of this committee, to go through page by page what our staff felt needed to be addressed. They would write the first draft, send it to the Collins Center. Collins Center would refine it to make sure it was compliant with current statutes, because many of them changed over the years. So Collins Center did the quality control. It came back to us. It went through a reading of myself, Biz, Mark, and a few others. We would sign off on that section over a 2-year period. It would then go back to the Collins Center. At the very end, there were 3 major sections. At the very end, Collins Center did a final QA/QC, made sure everything was consistent with the current statutes that exist today, and they sent us back that copy. It was a 2-year iterative process between us, multiple towns that we reviewed their policies, and they collaborated with us on what they've changed since they published that policy, and the Collins Center. It was an exhaustive effort, but the final document, there was no draft that preceded this.
Okay.
This is the first document published by the Collins Center.
Thank you. Any questions? If you could, out of courtesy, quick, please.
If the town manager could just let us know, how much did you call it an iterative process cost? How much did we pay for this project to the Collins Center?
I think it was approximately $30,000 paid for with a grant by the Commonwealth.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions, comments? Oh, with favorite motion? Mr. Collins has made a motion to adjourn, which I will accept. I need a second.
Second.
All right, Don Dino has seconded along with the rest of the committee. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, you can stay. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.